Hey everybody, Derek here again. I'm here to bring you another video for our Sons of Anarchy countdown to the final season. We are about 10 days away from our upcoming final season of Sons of Anarchy. We are getting closer each day, folks. I'm getting excited. Definitely have a lot to look forward to. September 9th is going to be here before we know it. I am excited for this final season. I think they really have a lot of great things set up for us. I'm going to be doing some videos a little later on doing a couple more predictions and things. But today's video is basically going to be a review of 3 episodes from Season 2, which are Small Tears, Fix, and Eureka, which is Season 2, Episodes 2, 3, and 4. The reason why I combine these together is because really, there's not... They definitely did a lot of great things, but it's just that... But I just feel like the plots kind of overlap in Small Tears and Fix, and then, Eureka's kind of a standalone, but it's there's a little bit of information there that basically you can combine them all into one video. I don't want to waste too much time, tearing apart things that are really simple, so that's why I'm combining these 3 episodes. But just in case you're not caught up with Sons of Anarchy, you're just starting it for some reason, don't watch the video because it may contain spoilers. Okay, so in Small Tears, we basically start the episode out with Unser discovering Gemma after Gemma has been raped by the white supremacist group alone. And basically, Unser wants to take Gemma to the hospital, wants to get this reported, wants to get this taken care of. Gemma says no. She doesn't want anybody to know that this happened to her. So what ends up happening is Unser takes her to Tara, and Tara basically treats her off the books to keep this a secret. Now, Gemma does this because Gemma wants to make sure that Clay and Jax don't do anything drastic. Because one of the things that we've learned about the group is that when someone tries to hurt them or one of their family members, they're going to retaliate. Which, you think that a lot of different people would do that anyways, but that's just the culture of the Sons of Anarchy. And she doesn't want Clay or Jax doing something so drastic that somebody innocent gets hurt or they end up going to prison. So that's why she keeps it a secret, to protect Jax and Tara. Oh, excuse me, Jax and Clay and the rest of the club, excuse me. So that's basically one of the things that they deal with throughout the episode. Gemma gets treated. Now on the club side, basically the body of the Mayan that was killed in the first episode is found. And Alvarez ends up calling Clay for guns. Clay says he doesn't have any. Basically, he's trying to stall Alvarez. He doesn't want to work with him based on their bad history. Now, what Jax ended up doing was he shot off the A that Opie had put on the body and put up 9 fingers for the guys, so it looked like the Niners did it. And of course, Clay's ticked because he wanted the relationship with the Mayans to end, but now this isn't going to happen. So basically, they have to call up the Niners and set up a meet so that they can give them guns to protect them against the Mayan War. So they set up that. And at the same time, Otto talks with Jax and basically tells him that Luann's porn studio has been shut down, which is very upsetting for Otto because he knows how much that Luann needs this. So basically, they find out that this guy, Georgie Caruso, is coming into the town and basically stealing away Luann's talent. So to stop him from doing that, they beat him up after he beats up Lila, one of the girls that works for Luann. And basically, they agree to go into a partnership with Luann because it sets up a legitimate business for the club, which is something that they need with the ATF looking at them with the gun running. So everybody agrees to it. They voted in. Now, another thing that they're doing is they're going to go and give the Niners the guns to protect them against the Mayans. Now, Zabel and Weston realize that Gemma didn't tell Clay because they see that Clay is not upset. They realize that if Gemma would have told Clay, Clay'd be all on the warpath. So they realize that nothing happened. So Zabel basically, on his own, tells the Mayans where the Sons are going to be doing the gun exchange. The Mayans end up going there and ambushing the scene, and they take the guns away. And Opie ends up stepping into the line of fire and fires at the Mayans. He could have been killed. Bobby was injured in this shooting, but Opie just steps out there and just starts shooting at Mayans. And we realize that, he's still suffering from, losing Donna. And we see that he may have a death wish. That's something that's starting to show. Now, Zobel ends up calling the Mayans, and basically they find out that the information was good. Zobel is setting up a relationship with the Mayans because he wants to control the heroin distribution. Zobel is all about making the money, and he uses whatever he can to his advantage. But the thing is, he doesn't include Weston, because Weston is basically like a hardcore white supremacist. He's not going to agree to working with the Niners or the Mayans because they're not white. They're Hispanic and they're African American, and he's not willing to work with those people. And if he found out that Zobel was doing this, he would be like shocked and upset. He's not going to go along with that. So Zobel ends up going behind his back, which is definitely, you see it. There's a lot of, tears there, and like small tears refers to something which I'm not going to talk about. It's not appropriate. But one of the things that you see is there are small tears already forming in the club and amongst, Zobel. Zobel not going with Weston shows that there are tears in those relationships that can eventually be, torn more. And you also see that happening with the Suns because Jax and Clay are at odds. Clay confronts Jax later basically at the end of the episode and says, "Why did you do that? Why did you change the A on the Mayan? I did that for a purpose." And Jax, of course, is still ticked about the whole, Donna getting killed rather than, by Opie. Excuse me, Donna getting killed, because Clay wanted to kill Opie, and he's basically just going to try to make Clay's life a living HE double hockey stick. So what ends up happening is Clay basically challenges Jax. He says, "Okay, Jax, you want to challenge my leadership? Go ahead and do it. But the moment that you start doing that and you make things personal and you overstep it, they're going to notice that, and you're the one that's going to end up looking like the bad guy." So he challenges Jax. And, of course, everything starts to carry over into the next episode, Fix, where, Gemma's still obviously traumatized from the rape, and she's not sleeping with Clay because she doesn't want him to get infected with any kind of STDs that she may or may not have gotten. And I also just don't think that she's recovered. She's not ready for that kind of physicality in her relationship yet. And Clay's obviously frustrated by, because Gemma basically set it up so that it almost was like she was in a car accident. She keeps saying that she's stiff, but of course Clay is just an aggressive male who wants loving, and he's just not tolerating this, and he wants them to be physical again. And he also just feels like Gemma's being distant to him, and I think again Gemma's being distant to him because she doesn't want to, end up letting something slip, I think. Plus, I think she's just, so traumatized that just any kind of male interaction is just going to be uncomfortable for her. It's just sometimes the way that these kind of incidents can affect people. I'm not an expert in any way. I'm just saying that, maybe this is the way that you would probably feel about the situation. So what ends up happening is Clay ends up assigning Bobby to be the accountant over at Kara, the porn studio run by Luann, because Bobby was injured. He was in prison for a couple months while he was waiting the trial of Brennan Hefner. He wasn't earning any money. And, Bobby has alimony and child support. We know that he has several kids and an ex-wife or two. So Clay gives him that, and he tells him to take a cut. Luann's obviously upset about this. So what ends up happening is Luann calls Gemma, and Gemma ends up going down to the Kara to talk with Luann because Luann's her friend. She's upset. And basically everybody's down there. And Clay's ticked. He's like, "What are you doing down here?" Because, Gemma, one of the things that, can happen, according to the way Clay feels, is Clay doesn't like it when Gemma oversteps her bounds. Sometimes Gemma forgets that she's just a wife, which is, again, I'm not trying to be offensive. I'm just speaking from Clay's perspective. Clay sees her as just a wife. That's it. He trusts in her, he confides in her, he loves her, but the moment that she starts interfering with his business, he gets upset. And he doesn't want that. He wants Gemma to be the housewife, and that's pretty much it. And, he ends up getting into an argument with her, and, he's also upset because, he wanted to talk with Gemma this morning. He wanted to see how she was doing, and she blew him off, didn't talk to him. And he's like, "Well, okay, so when Luann's upset, you have time for her, but you don't have time for me. And Gemma just, thinks of him as selfish in that respect. Of course, like I said, she's also still traumatized, and Clay ends up throwing a cinder block through her window and beating in the front of her vehicle. So you see that Clay's work, has aggression issues. You can see this early on, which come into play later in the series. You see how those aggression issues end up coming to a head. But you see how Clay has that capability. Now, another plot point that happened in Fix was basically Hale. David Hale had a very big role in this episode. Because what ended up happening was, Zobel wants to recruit Hale. Because having the law on your side is going to help you a little bit. Excuse me. So Zobel tells Hale, he goes, hey, guess what? I'm going to bring drugs and prostitution into Charming. I'm going to have him here while Unser is still chief. But once you step up to be chief, I'm going to take him away. Now, Hale's not very comfortable with this. And he doesn't want to stain his, law-abiding, by-the-book ways. He wants to be the good lawman. He really does. That's why he's not willing to work with the Sons when he steps up to be chief. He wants to take them down. When he sees injustice, he wants that done. He's a very straight shooter. He's not someone that can be bought. Now, what ends up happening, though, is that Zobel's already brought the drugs in. There already are drugs in Charming. The club ends up finding out about it because they find a dealer. They end up using the information. They find out where the house is that Darby's cooking meth at, and they decide to test Hale to see if he's really in Zobel's pocket. Jax calls Hale, basically tells him where the site is. Hale goes up there, and he can tell something's going on up there, but, and I think that he was still trying to figure out what is he supposed to do, because he didn't have a warrant, things like that. And he confronts Zobel. He's like, hey, you already brought drugs into Charming. What are you doing? And Zobel just says, he tries to claim he's not responsible for Darby, but we know he was involved. But basically, Zobel ends up telling him that the reason why he does this, why he's part of Lone, is because his wife was killed in a drive-by shooting. Which is definitely, it appeals to Hale. That Zobel's lost someone important in his life. So he kind of sees Zobel at that moment as the lesser of two evils. I think that's, he realizes that he can't play it straight and expect to get rid of the Sons. When the Sons are going to play dirty, Hale feels like he has to do the same thing. He's overcome with his desire to take them down, that he basically just blows off the meth house. He just says, no, I'm not going to do anything about it. Tells the club it's faulty. So it's up to the club to deal with the situation. So they end up blowing up the meth house. Opie ends up using a fuse, almost doesn't make it out in time. And again, you realize that again, Opie's got a death wish, and that's something that that they're going to have to deal with. Because if he's being reckless, he's going to get some people hurt. So we see that Opie is still dealing with all of that. Now, when Bobby ends up going up and doing the accounting information, he finds out that Luann's been skimming money from the operation, not giving any money to the club in those previous years, because basically the club was it was a club business, and basically she had been skimming money. So in order to keep Bobby quiet, Luann ends up sleeping with him, which definitely has big repercussions later on in the show. It's you don't realize, like, Sutter does such a great job of, when you act like in an immoral way, or you do something that basically is, goes against the principles of the Sons, or, things like that, it comes back and it haunts them in such a big way. I never would have thought in a million years how that storyline would end up being so detrimental to certain characters later on in the show. Definitely does a lot of damage, but that's basically Bobby accepts it, so that way he'll stay quiet and he gets some. He feels like it's a win-win. Another thing that happens in this episode, which is a big moment for Jax and Tara. Tara ends up realizing that it's kind of uncomfortable that Jax is around all these hot women that are in porn business, and one of them, Ima, is basically has the hots for him. And Tara sees Ima getting close with Jax, and Gemma kind of educates her. She's like, hey, you see her doing that. You comfortable with her doing that to your man? Not, you need to educate her. Go out there and kick her rear end. Tara's like, well, I'm kind of grown up from that. I don't need to stoop down to her level. But, later on you see, because Ima's basically like very standoffish. She's trying to basically steal Jax away from Tara, trying to make herself out to be like, the tougher woman in the situation. Well, what ends up happening is at the Kara after party, Jax basically, is with Ima again, and Ima tries to tell Tara off, and Tara, tries to basically like intimidate Ima, like she's like, get out of my face, don't mess with me. But Ima just, Ima realizes Tara's not going to do anything to her. It's funny, to her. Well, Jax ends up going to see Tara in the bathroom, and Tara basically just lunges at him, and they end up making love in the bathroom. And Ima walks in, and the look on Tara's face, like when she stares right at Ima, is she's basically like, yeah, lady, I win. That is one of my favorite scenes. Just seeing Tara's face, realizing she's the victor, and like she didn't have to, compromise herself and beat the girl down. She basically just said, hey, my man loves me, and I'm showing it right to you in this bathroom. And it's just an amazing, scene in general. You get like this powerful feeling when you're like looking there. You're like, man, this is every man's dream. But on the other hand, you also see, Tara is trying to figure out this life, and you see like how far she's willing to go in at this time. I mean, you see later on, that she's not afraid to throw a punch when it's needed, but she also has more sense about her, and I think that shows why she might be a better old lady than maybe Gemma or somebody else. She doesn't feel like every time something comes up that she has to use her fists. And you also see Gemma and Clay at the end kind of make up, but basically, they're still not totally healed from everything. And Clay ends up going and getting with one of the Kara ladies, just because he needs some satisfaction in his life. So a lot of that, happens. And the next episode, Eureka, it's kind of like a standalone episode, but at the same time, it still has a lot of things coming over from it. Because basically what Sam Crow is doing is they're doing their first run for the IRA, running the guns up north. So they basically do that. Clay is basically having problems with his hands again because Clay has arthritis. And of course you need your hands to cup around the handles of the bicycle. And, I think the throttle's on the top of on the handle, as far as I know. So that obviously puts a lot of strain to have your hands down like that when your arthritis is affecting, your knuckles and your fingers. So Clay is basically, he gets his shots for that. He takes cortisone for it. And I also like in the next scene when Jax and Tara are basically together in the room, and Jax tells Tara, what they're doing. And Tara basically states, I'm your old lady. I mean, like, our relationship has taken that step. And it was nice to see that Tara acknowledging that, and you see just how serious these two's relationship is. It's not just some, random relationship. They do love each other. And it's nice to see that. And basically the club goes on the gun run, and they find out from the IRA that some of the higher ups are coming over, one of them being Jimmy-O. And we realize that Jimmy-O and Chibs have a very bad past. What ended up happening was Jimmy-O basically had Chibs kicked out of the IRA. I don't really remember what the reason was. I don't know if they even necessarily went that far into detail with it, but he basically ends up taking Chibs' wife and daughter and keeping them as his own. He basically inserts himself as the daddy figure. So that's obviously very uncomfortable for Chibs, but, they end up going on the run. Bobby brings along this old bike that basically ends up it backfires, and smoke goes out, and Tig ends up crashing. They end up having to take Tig to the hospital. Tig is in the waiting room. They're going to transfer him, and one of the nurses calls up a bounty hunter with Tig's name. It turns out Tig's wanted in Oregon. So the bounty hunters come and take him, and Halfsack ends up following them. So basically, making sure he knows where Tig is going. And they eventually track him to a hotel because they have to turn him in without injury in Oregon, or else they won't get paid. And Clay and Jax once again start butting heads. excuse me, frequent times throughout the episode. Like there's this one moment where they were at a gas station. Basically, Jax wants to rescue Tig now, and Clay wants to finish the run. And Clay tries to zoom away on his motorcycle, and he just falls off of it because his hands are sore. And I think that you see that the two of them are eventually going to come to heads. And you can see the members starting to get, again, like just how Clay warned, that they're going to start catching on, and they can already see that. And they almost come to blows, and Bobby ends up having to be the mediator, separating them. And what ends up happening is Piney ends up coming up with the tow truck, because he had to tow the bikes away. And he ends up taking Jax, Chibs, and Happy along on the back of the tow truck. They crash through the motel and they rescue Tig. Piney's just, thinking, well, hey, we got a member that's kidnapped. We're just going to take care of it. He doesn't care what Clay says at this point. There's a member in danger and he's coming to the rescue. And I love that scene. It was nice seeing them take initiative. And it also shows, but again, it does create more of a rift with the group. Because you realize that, though Clay and Jax being at odds, it's going to separate the club, and it's going to end up causing a lot of, stress on the relationships in the club. It'd be like if the president and the vice president of the United States started arguing and didn't agree on anything. That would not be a very good thing. That would not be good at all if the president and the vice president of the United States weren't cooperating. Same thing here. This is the mother chapter of the Sons of Anarchy. If these two can't get along, their decisions are going to affect the other charters. So seeing that relationship deteriorating more is definitely a lot of concern, and a lot of the members are concerned. They show that. They're like, when are these two gonna patch up their differences, or what's gonna happen? So they're very concerned. Gemma also has a very big storyline here. What ends up happening is Zobel and Weston end up sending one of the masks that was used in the rape to basically intimidate her and scare her. Gemma ends up, it came in a shopping bag, and basically it was the old store that used to be on the street where Zobel's cigar store is. And Gemma goes there and sees Weston and realizes that, Weston was one of the men that raped her. And, of course, she, is trying to take this all in. She's still traumatized, still upset by this. She ends up pointing a gun at a woman who was, harassing her. And Unser comes there, and basically she shows him the mask, and he tries to protect her because Unser doesn't want Gemma to do something drastic. So he ends up taking the gun away from her, but Gemma has spares. I mean, fun. She's got 2 cookie tins or whatever it was, full of guns. I mean, she just has so many, that she can use at her own, free will. She has a small little army of guns in her closet. So basically, she ends up tracking Weston down at a construction site. She hides in one of the porta potties and is just she can take the shot and kill Weston right there. But Weston ends up getting a call from his son, and Gemma just can't do it. And I think, again, Gemma is a family woman, and I don't think that she wants to see him separated from his kids. I just think that in that moment, realizing that Weston's a father and how traumatic it would be if she would shoot him right then and there when he was talking to his son, I just think that it was too much for her to deal with at that point. She wasn't ready to, shoot him, and couldn't at that moment. Unser ends up taking some action of his own because, again, he wants to protect Gemma. He loves Gemma. He thinks of her as, he loves her. I mean, we've seen this many times where Unser basically wishes that Gemma would have fallen for him rather than Clay. I mean, we see that. And what ends up happening is Unser goes to Zobel and basically threatens him and kind of says, hey, people who don't belong in Charming tend to disappear, and you doing what you're doing, you're going to be one of the people that, is out. He says that Charming chooses its own residents, and really it's like he's saying, hey, Sam Crow's going to, kill you if they find out what's going on, just so you know. And he does that, and he basically also tells Tara to keep her eye on Gemma. Because, again, he wants the best for Gemma. He wants to see her safe. And he promises to protect her, and I know that he's going to follow through with that, He's going to do whatever it takes to protect Gemma from all of that's going on. So at the very end of the episode, you see Clay and Jax once again butting heads. I mean, Jax is basically saying, "Hey, I can't let you get away with what you did to Donna, and I'm just going to challenge you because it's the only thing I know what to do." And he brings it up again. Clay basically delivers like a very powerful line at that moment. He says, "You ever bring up Donna or the incident ever again, and I will kill you." And I think he meant it at that moment. Clay realizes that Jax is becoming a detriment to his club, and he's starting to, cause rifts. He's starting to become more annoying than just challenging. And I mean, those decisions that could affect the lives of the other club members. So I think at that moment, I mean, he realizes that Jax is a threat to everything he's been working up to in his life, and he basically, is telling Jax, proceed carefully, son. And you know that there's just going to be more to that, and the later episodes just really have a lot going on in them. So I'm going to bring this video to a close. I want to thank everybody who's been watching. I want to thank everybody. If you have not subscribed, please do so. I have a lot of other videos available. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them. Feel free to leave a video topic. I have a lot of ideas, but I always like to hear to see what maybe one of you guys wants me to do a video on. Definitely a lot of topics left for Sons of Anarchy. So again, I want to thank everybody, and I hope you have a wonderful night. Thank you.